Welcome back everyone to the second installation of my Godot journey. Checkpoints, health, and attack. Let's dive right in. Here's an overview of what I've added since the last video. A spin attack, which I've not yet animated, but cool nonetheless. I've added some checkpoints, health to the player so they don't die instantly. Now they can take a certain number of hits to die before respawning back at the checkpoints. I've added consumable fruits, which don't yet add health to the player, but I'm planning on making them be able to bring back the player's health afterwards. I've added a Coyote Timer, and for those of you that don't know what a Coyote Timer is, really common thing in 2D platforming, where if you slightly run off the edge of a platform, you can still jump. It's used in a number of really mainstream platforming games, and if you don't add it, it makes it feel like it's very unfair to you as a player. So I've added that because that was what a recommendation was from a lot of people. And then finally, playing around with Assaprite again, and I've added some new grass blocks that I've designed myself as well. I'll be talking about each stage as it comes up, and we'll be running my development in the background at about 10 times the speed, just so the video isn't 12 hours long. And that's that. But just before we have a look at that, it's Godot Trivia time! And our question today is, what is the difference between a mask and a layer? And the reason I've added this question in is because I didn't know. I had to Google it, and it took me a long time to sort of actually figure that out. So I'll give you a very simplistic answer. Masks are essentially for detecting, and layers are for being detected. The best way of thinking about that is to try and think of raycasts, and raycasts are detection only. So if a raycast only has a collision mask, you should use a collision mask, and vice versa for the layers. And that's that. Let's not hesitate any further and get into the full video and see what's new. Here's a little run through of the actual game itself for you guys. Here's the little consumable fruit that I've added, which if you press E and do our spin attack, will disappear and eventually add health to our player. We're going to have a little bounce around up here. And if we land down here, we can see that we can now spin attack our slimes. So bam, he's dead. Very happy with that so far. We've got the new grass blocks here, as you guys can see. You'll see me drawing those a little bit later on as well and adding them to the world in the sped up development section. And then this bit will be very familiar to all of you. This isn't really... Wow, I'm so bad at this platformer. It's my own game and I can't even do it. But yeah, this part will be very familiar to all of you. Nothing's changed in these elements of the game. But I have added a little checkpoint here, which is the check flag, which I think is very funny, if only to me. And then I've added a little bit of something on the end, just for a little bit of a challenge, which is these two extra slimes. And then we have... You can pick the way. You can either try and go under and face all of these slimes with your spin attacks, or you can go the safe route over the top to the final checkpoint. And here's a showing of the checkpoint working. So if we fall off the edge, boom, there he goes. If we get hit once, he doesn't die. As you can see, we haven't got the animation from him being hit yet, or the damage, but he has been hit. And then the second time he's hit, he'll die and respawn on the last checkpoint. And that's pretty much it. Next up, all the development and me chatting about how it went and my personal struggles with all of it. Here we go. So the first thing that I worked on after the last video was the fruit, which wasn't a long endeavor. Just took a quick Google to find out how to make the tile set into the one fruit tile that I wanted, which was like the little grapes here. A nice little addition. Like I said earlier in the intro, hopefully it's going to be adding health to the player eventually, and it probably won't be fruit, it'll be something more magical and hat related, whatever that is. And then after that we've got the spin attack, and I've done a recreation of the code that I used for the spin attack because I forgot to record it the first time. In reality, if this was sped up of how long it actually took me, it would be at least 12 hours of footage. I started after I finished work one afternoon and failed to implement anything for the entire day, and then finally got it working the morning, the day after. So 10 seconds of video footage. But by far the hardest thing I had to put in the game was the spin attack, yeah. And then after that, as you guys can see, I tried my hand at designing my first block and tile set, and just to see how that worked. I don't plan on keeping these grass blocks in the game. It was more just as a sort of heads up for myself in the future. All of the design elements I plan on doing after I finish the core mechanics of the game, because there's no point designing the level and then adding a double jump, for example, because it will make all of the level design up to that point worthless and a complete waste of time. So here's me making a grass block. I didn't like the look of it, and I did end up redrawing it later on in this video, as you'll see. And I'm also quite embarrassed to admit that the recording playing in the background now is showing that I forgot to add the actual physics paint to the grass block, and I spent at least half an hour, maybe 45 minutes, trying to work out why my player kept falling through the floor and dying. However, I did eventually get it working, and when I did, I placed them all down nicely, replacing the old dirt blocks and leaving the old assets that weren't the grass blocks, so I thought it looked better than having just an entire world of my terrible drawing of the grass block there. And as I previously mentioned earlier, I didn't even like the look of these grass blocks eventually anyway. Went back, redesigned them a little bit. I added 2 new grass blocks for a little bit of variance because I just felt like it, I suppose, even though I've just been a little bit of a hypocrite and said I shouldn't do anything to do with the design, and then did more things to do with the design. Oh, and just as a little segue, guys, there will be a link in the description of the YouTube video with the Discord server that I have. It's been around for a little while. It used to be just for the Game Gateway Twitch account, but I may as well open it up to you guys on YouTube as well. And that way, you guys can go into the game dev section of the Discord or just the general chat, give me some tips and hints about what maybe I should have done a little bit differently, or what you'd like to see in the game, what new mechanics you'd like to see, what enemies you might like to see later on in the line. And yeah, just come and join and have a chat as well, and come play some games with me. I love meeting new people. It's why I do this. It's why I go on Twitch. So make yourself known, especially if you enjoyed the video and you like what you see so far. And yeah, back to the game dev stuff. Sorry about the little plug there. And then, as you guys can see here, here's some footage of me doing the Coyote Timer. Quite a satisfying bit of code to do, actually. Quite straightforward and easy, and I didn't really find myself getting too stuck for too long. It wasn't as frustrating as the spin attack or later on the checkpoints. And even though it was such an easy addition to the game, it really did make the difference with feel, and it started turning it into what I consider to be a real platformer. There were so many times in the testing phase when I first opened up the game and worked out the movement where I just kept falling off the edge of the ledge, and it was just really frustrating. And now you've got that grace period where you can jump after you've fallen off the block. And then finally moving on to the real nightmare checkpoints. Oh, this was my absolute Everest for coding. And let me get into why quickly with you. These checkpoints really gave me a hard time. Originally, I had the coding set up for kill zones. My player didn't have a dive function, and it made me come a bit unstuck later on when I was trying to make the player be respawned with the checkpoints. Essentially, what happened is, because I'd set the game up to just reload the scene, he wouldn't die, so I had to remove the kill zone. I had to remove the reload scene function and the kill zone entirely. All of that's gone. And instead, I've added an actual die function, and also just made it so, he can take damage, has that health that I was talking about earlier, and it made it all a little bit more easy and functional in the long run. In the short run, it was much easier when I was following that tutorial with brackies. In the short run, it was much easier to do that, but I'm now seeing that if I'd have kept that, it would have only got harder and harder to implement new things with a scene reload. There was like another 20 minutes of footage of the checkpoints, even after I'd sped it up to 16 times. So you can't see the final product because I've just cut it out. So we'll just move straight onto the final part, which is health. I forgot to record the part of me actually doing the health coding, so I'm just highlighting it for you guys now, what I've actually added to the code. It's a really cool integration. I plan on adding the UI for it after, and a little, health bar, etc. And that's the final piece for the game. Let me know what you think, guys, of the video and the game so far. Leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe if you haven't already, and hopefully I'll see you guys very, very soon. Bye bye for now.